tore it down, I rebuilt it. I give myself a task, you can bet your ass I fulfill it. Yeah, man, I'm talking about Willis, one of the realest to try. My family.
Gardening, Billy Bond's fruit tree planting method. There's a bunch of names to it, but essentially you're suppressing the weeds and allowing little channels, a highway for the worms to come through. And they're going to get in these holes and they're going to poop and put all their juices in it, and it's going to create bacteria life in the soil faster than most things you can do. Compost tea and extracts work well, but it's in conjunction with this where we're going to put this in there and it's going to soak it up. What I've done on people's properties that ask me for help is I'll buy rolls from Uline, and you can get them 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot by 250, and you can put them in dumpsters, barrels, and you soak them with a compost tea mix, or what I like to use because it's easily available, like Tractor Supply, is the 511 fish fertilizer, Alaska fish fertilizer. Mix up a batch of that and just soak in it, and then it'll all draw it into it. So now you've created a nice little weed mat with fertilizer in there. So have you ever pulled a sponge out from under your sink and it's like a rock? Well, once you put moisture to it, it sucks to it. And so we're going to want to plant the tree, water it in, and then put that on top of it. And so by having it wet, it will conform to the soil that's out there instead of sitting up, and you'll have air pockets, which then allows shit to germinate and grow.
One of John's dogs imprinted on me, and now she's been in lockdown. It's like Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, she'll stay. All right, so we did this one because it looks like every storage tree you could buy in your area, whether you're in Florida or Alaska. Tractor Supply, Home Depot has these in stock right now. Preferably, this is the exact worst time to plant this tree. It's hot, it's gonna be summer here. You want it in the fall, and what we actually want is actually like December, January, even February, because it's still warm here up until October, November. We want it cool, we want it moist, and we want it on a cloudy day. We've got some cloud cover, and it's getting into the evening, so it won't be bad, but you do the best what you have, what you got where you're at. We're going to be taking apart this root structure, because when they get to the nursery, you saw that small apricot that's down in that bucket there. Everything starts in a small 1 gallon pot, and then it goes to a 3 gallon pot and a 5 gallon pot. And they're actually not 5 gallon. You'll see an ordering, and they're just called a number 5. They call them 5 gallon pots. I don't know why. 7, 12, they all go up.
Just like 2x4s.
Just like 2x4s. And so when we do that, we're going to be probably cutting some root structure, because once it starts at the first 1 gallon pot, it starts to circle and circle and circle. And then they don't have time. They're doing thousands. Like Pearl Nursery that's in Smithville does all the Southeast Tractor Supplies, and they've got tens of thousands of trees. And so they're just up potting as fast as they can, and there's nobody sitting there plucking every root and making sure it's perfect. So they're gonna have wraps within wraps, and then sometimes they'll go and hit the bottom, and then they'll just come right back up. And so once you have that happen, you'll have a tree that lasts for a year or two, and then next thing you know, it's dead, and you're like, what happened?
We'll pull 5 gallon buckets of fruit off of them, and the next year it'll just be dead.
Fruit trees are like tomatoes. I don't know if anyone ever grown a garden.
Yeah.
You had pests in your garden? Happens. It's all cultivated stuff. These trees are, frontier or wind blow trees that came in, and they are suited to our area, especially when this type of soil, shitty soil, dirt. They come in quick and they put in roots, that way they can amass stuff, and then next thing you know, you have your good trees in 10, 30, 100 years. So everything we do, or I do, is based around permaculture. And so it's observing that and planting it here. You can see that tree over there. You can see it's sticking out of the ground. The roots are on top of the ground. The tree flare and the trunk flare is actually out above. So whenever we're in this type of soil, I plant it as high as you can, and you decompact as much as you can. Florida, not for you. You're in a sandy, loamy soil. You want it tight and high. So they say on the back of this tag, you'll read it and you can look at it when you get a minute. It says planted is 3 times the largest size of the pot. I don't do that. It gets too deep, the soil decompacts, and it settles, and then next thing you know, your trunk and root flare is actually below grade, and sometimes your graft union is below grade. And you can see right here, this tree is in panic mode, and it's trying to tell us something. It's coming out of the root stock, and this is the fruiting stock. We want the fruit, not the root. So we're gonna come back in here and we're gonna cut everything that's down here.
Why is it in panic mode?
It's stressed out for some reason. It's telling itself, hey, save me, save me. And you'll see pine trees where it'll have multiple branches and it'll come straight up, and it's something in there is diseased, and it's told the tree that we don't want to do this. Could be this wound here might have stressed it out. Could be too much water.
The sheep were in here for like 2 days.
And you can see what's great about this is if you plant your systems right, like this bucket over here has a comfrey root in it, it's a self-fulfilling nitrogen soil. The comfrey root puts nitrogen nodules into the soil out of the air and feeds the tree. So you don't have to pay at the grocery store or at Tractor Supply for nitrogen fixing fertilizer. What we did just right here is chop and drop. The chickens are going to come over and eat this because it's green. But most of the time, these leaves will decompose in place and put nutrients into the soil for the tree.
Do you need to like address that wound on the tree at all?
It's already healed.
It's already healed over, and you can get they make stuff that you can paint over it, like a wax type stuff. I follow what Sparks, Michael Sparks, said yesterday. It's from Mark Shepard, Strategic Total Utter Neglect. Oh, shit. Stun method. Plant it, don't baby it, water the heck out of it for the first 3 years. What we're doing here is we're creating a fire hydrant out of the soil to put up into these branches so that way they can fill water balloons with sugar. And so if you don't make it and it doesn't work, get rid of it. We've got trees here that didn't make it. Try something else. John and I both love figs. They work great in our climate. They're from the Mediterranean, so whenever I'm planting, I'm thinking about where they came from. What's their basis of origin? Apples and pears come from like Afghanistan mountains, so they like dry, rocky soil, well draining. Figs are from the Mediterranean. They don't like to be wet all the time. They like monsoon season and then dryness. Monsoon season and dryness. The most success I've had is something that you told me, that Nick Ferguson told you, which is plant it right on top of the ground.
We drilled holes here. This was all a gravel pit, so when we core this out, it's that red clay, like you see that dam's built of. That's what's here. We drilled these holes with an auger, and then it rained, and they held water, and most of the holes held water for multiple weeks. So I brought a trencher in, and I was going to cut it and put a weep line and then backfill it with gravel so it could weep. And Nick said, "Why are you doing all of that bullshit?" And I go, "Well, what would you do?" He goes, "I would just put some wood mulch on top, make some piles, plant in there, and the roots will chase down, and then when the roots are in place, you'll have a very strong tree." And that worked really well until everything unfrosted through the winter. And as soon as the chickens realized all of that life was in those mulches, they uprooted a bunch of the trees. So the fix would have just been a tomato cage type out of like fencing. That would have kept the chickens out, and it would have worked perfectly. It in fact has worked. Now we just went through and took a bunch of the trees that had died. This has been a 3-year progress. And I pulled a bunch out, planted them, and then the sheep kind of pushed them over, the chickens. So you'll see a bunch of them over there have lines on them just holding them in place. And I built all of those so they're just tied around a wooden stake, so if I hit them with a mower, it doesn't destroy the mower. We can also take them, I put them in a manner that we can take them off easily if we need to mow around or do any work in there.
Preferably, when you're planting trees, you don't usually want to stake them. If
We did not. They had fallen over, and I neglected them long enough that they're growing in place sideways.
That's what I was going to say. Unless it's too late, we've done it. You can always uproot a tree. You can watch YouTube videos of dudes there's machines that go into pecan orchards and just cut these giant swaths and pick up 100-year-old trees and take them out of the ground. Preferably want to do that in the winter when these deciduous leaves fall off. Florida, you don't know what deciduous means, but that's when the leaves fall off and things die. I'd love to, I like Florida for the zone, but I hate Florida for hurricanes and alligators and sharks. So when I plant a tree now, I imagine Captain America's shield setting down on the ground. So I want to create a dish. And so we're decompacting the soil around it. You're making it deep enough, only deep enough where you're going to get, and we'll do this here, where you're going to get to that root flare. And this has already kind of self-done that.
Oh, look at that. That is the root.
Yeah, that's the root. And so you can go in the woods and you can see storybooks of just giant roots out there like those are. And so I think planting them decompacted and high as possible is the best method for it. I've literally took peaches and I planted them at different intervals, and the ones that are the healthiest are the ones I just sat on the ground and mounded up with mulch and compost and rabbit manure.
Do you want to do these as a guild where we did an oregano, blueberry, thyme, strawberry?
Preferably a guild is the best. It's much like you going out into the middle of one of these farmers' fields in the middle of 100 acres and just saying, hey, I'm going to survive here. You're alone, you have nobody around you. Each of these plants, like the comfrey, is going to put out exudates into the roots, and it's going to say, hey, microbiology, what do I need to survive? And the microbiome will show up. The earthworms will show up. They'll add value to the soil. So everything you plant in here is going to be around stuff. So in permaculture, it's called the 7 layers of the forest. They're now talking 8 and 9 due to other things, microbiome, fungi. But we're going to look around. You can see you have, at the very top, you have your overstory. This tree here would be our understory. And then you have a shrub layer, a herbaceous layer, flowering layer, and then your mushroom layer. Everything grows the best when it's around other things. We've always been taught in this landscaping model, which I love the looks of a golf course. Pure manicured lawns with trees coming out the grass, looks beautiful, but it's not sustainable when you actually are trying to grow fruit. And I came to this as a prepper, and I was like, oh, somebody else will do the gardening stuff. I've been stockpiling, I got a storage unit full of freeze-dried food. I'm gonna show up and be an asset. You can be more of an asset getting knowledge, like Lewis said last night. Hey, why don't you go take a class with Nods? So that way when you show up on a property, you're like, dude, I've already taken Nods class training. I know how to handle myself. You're now an asset. And the more training you get, the less stuff you need. Because most of the stuff that we have here that I could plant trees with, I could compost and mulch with anything that's here, and I don't have to go to the store. The stuff that I said, hey, let's get some 511 from Tractor Supply, we can make that. Alaskan fish fertilizer, you can get worm casings, you can get fish poop, you can take a rotten chicken, bury it in the hole. I prefer not to compost just because it's too much work. If I can take, and we're gonna get a good mulch ring, and I'm eating a banana, and I got the peel, pull the mulch back, throw the banana peel, cover the mulch back up. And then that way I'm not actually going out every day and turning these 18-day, 30-day compost piles. If you don't turn them, they get anaerobic, which you'll smell here once we pull these figs out.
That comfrey right there will grow, some of that stuff will grow 6 inches a day, and you can chop it right in place and it'll just keep growing, and all of your animals need it. If you choose what you put here, then you can have a product out of what you get here also, and so some of that stuff will choke out some of this. This clover will also help fix some of the nitrogen in there.
Yeah.
I got a 10-gallon mulching wheel from Aldi's.
Great.
I just do coffee grounds, eggshells, and banana peels.
How many times are you turning it?
About 15, maybe a week. I just go out there every time I throw in.
It's too much
turn it
work
a couple
for
of times.
You're getting very, very little out of that though.
Too much work for me. So what I do for the most of my nutrition for the soil, fertilization, is I have rabbits. And we skinned one the other day. That's great. I'd rather have a lamb or a cow and then have someone process it or do it yourself, because what do we say? About 50 rabbits per one Katahdin lamb, maybe, is amount of equal meat, maybe. I mean, shoot, that's a lot of heartbeats you got to kill just to put food on the table. Whereas they're more valuable to me for their poop. And so what I do is I take mulch from our wheelbarrow, pile it underneath, let them poop and pee on it, and then they take and it absorbs it like we did with the cardboard. And then I can just literally take that cold composted manure, because chicken, anything that's a ruminant animal has to be delayed for a year or two. This can go straight on to the soil, and we're going to grab some out of the compost pit to put on here. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
So what kind of trees can you grow in any climate?
That's like what kind of car do I want to drive today? Like it depends on where you are, what you're doing. Like you're in 10A, 9A, 9B zone, which the zones are all dependent on how cold it gets for temperature at distance. And I think it's below 45 degrees for however many nights. Like
The
a pair.
FDA just migrated all of your zones also.
And I wouldn't listen to that. I think that's nonsense. I go by the 1994, the USDA zone. That was before they changed it in 20-something, 16, and they changed it again. I think they're literally, the tack is on the home grower. You know, everything is, hey, we don't have milk, we can't have chickens in our yard, we can only have this many, you can't have a rooster. That's not a concern for a farm, a mega farm, a Tyson chicken plant. So they have lobbyists that go, hey, we don't want to do that. Here's some money, take care of it. I think they're after what you can do at your own home to survive on and be self-sustainable. But to answer your question, go on any website that you're like, hey, I want to look at trees, just type in fruit trees. Stark Brothers, Tai Nursery, a myriad of others. Isoms is a great one out of Georgia. They've got great muscadine vines and wines, and they do lots of good stuff. And it'll give you a zone. You say, hey, what's your zone? Put your zip code in. And I'll say, hey, I'm in 9A, and it'll give you only the stuff that you can grow. And I tried to grow kumquats. You'll go to even the local Lowe's here, and they've got lemons and clamato, all the sorts of oranges. They just want to spend money because everyone likes the idea of having an orange.
You'll never see that. You'll have a $5,000 limit.
Right. If you want to build a greenhouse and do what's the Wallapini, where it's in the ground and you're getting the convection, the geothermal, and I mean just order them in from Florida, and you'll save money by having fresher fruit that's not a work and not a stress. I did the Miwa kumquat because it gets to 32. I put it in a mineral tub and I had it on rollers so I could roll it from the garage to out in the driveway, and then when it got cold I rolled it in. I get tired at night and go, oh, I didn't know it was supposed to freeze, and then you come out and my 3-year-old Miwa kumquat's dead because I missed one night. And it puts out delicious little fruits, sweet. You can eat the rinds for vitamin C. My thought was, hey, I need to get my nutrients and vitamins, and I want something growing all year round. When I plant, I look at when this stuff's gonna fruit. And so I want early spring, I want middle summer, and I want fall. And the fall stuff is usually your apples and pears, your calories that you can store. Keeping in a cool, dry place. And some apples, like the Arkansas black apple, when it stores longer, it actually tastes better.
The Arkansas black is also the one that you want with the rust on it.
Right. And
None of these apples, you can eat great apples all year long, and they implode.
yeah. So if you look around, there's cedar trees, and if you're driving and you get a chance to slow down and look, there'll be these orange plumes that look like a sea urchin, and they're a mushroom fungus that puts out spores. And my thought was like, oh, I'll just cut down all the cedars in my area.
They'll blow 8 miles.
Yeah, I didn't know 8. I thought it was 5, so even worse. So you need to buy 8 miles of square property and kill all the cedar trees when you can just buy cedar rust resistant. SUNY Cortland out of New York, big apple country, they literally, that's what they do, is they put out cedar rust resistant apples. You can Google cedar rust resistant apples. Liberty, Jonah Mac, Jonathan. Yeah, all of those. The Arkansas black out of probably Arkansas.
And once those are going, they're established tree, providing 3 of the year, you barely make.
Once you get past 3 years, it's essentially, it'll just do its own thing. And preferably you set yourself up for success now. So doing the little bit of labor, grading it out. Like John's got these massive swales that are essentially fighting trenches. It's going to hold water. It's going to create aquifer soil. These guineas are going to come and attack us. They're trying to listen in. Those are the real feds. Yeah, I am. This is my biggest thing is planting trees. And what I love about it is you can do it anywhere. You're like, I live in an apartment. Well, there's a 5-gallon bucket with a fig tree, and I get figs out of that. Better yet, where you driving home to work, look for a spot on the side of the road that's overgrown, and at night, the afternoon, the evening, get you an orange vest from Amazon and go plant some trees there. Guerrilla garden that bad boy. And then when you plant all these stuff like comfrey and rosemary and thyme and oregano, preferably daffodils and garlic around the base that keeps the moles and the voles and the deer off of it as much. Billy Bond has a great product called bone sauce that you paint up the branches, especially when it's deciduous. If you paint it on this green stuff, it'll die, wither back. This is new growth this year. This is almost 2 foot of growth in 1 year. But yeah, I'm a big fan of guerrilla gardening. I think more people do it. It's the common sense thing. The problem is that the tree's probably going to die because you're not out there tending it and watering it and maintaining it. So if you put it on a good spot, look up some different methods on how to plant in your area, and you can get water to attract to the hole. You can do ponds, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do that puts water near the tree when you're not around. And what would be cool is you're driving down the road 20 years from now, and you look out the window, you're like, I forgot I planted a pear tree a mile from the house, and you and your kids can go over and get pears. Or apartment, which most people are apartment dwellers. Or
I can pull a gallon of figs, just gliding by in the morning. I can eat so many figs, I'm like, oh shit, I feel sick.
now I love, nothing I've learned is self-taught, or came up with my own. It's all from other people. Billy Bond taught us this when he did the food forest class here, interplanting strawberries. I showed you all that in the buckets there. Don't plant them how you think you want them, like a nice little garden, and you cut the runners and you're like, it looks messy. The more messy it looks like this, the more strawberries you're gonna get, because the birds can't see them.
You want to shade all that soil too.
Right. The more stuff you have on here, the wetter the soil will be. If you leave it, even with mulch, it won't be as wet. And I recommend 6 inches is like almost a waste of time. You should be almost to a foot of mulch around your trees. And I think mulching in your garden, people are like, I want straw. It's very hard to find glyphosate-free hay and straw. Because and so every time we're going to do a little demonstration here, and then we'll set you guys up to dig a little hole and plant your own. But every year you can do this cardboard mulch method. So stuff's growing up. What you're going to have is squirrels planting hickory nuts and walnuts and stuff in it, and you're going to come out to this little thing, take that cardboard, wet it, set it on top, cover it in mulch. You won't ever have to weed again. Back to Eden method, lasagna gardening, Insta gardening. Some things you can Google to check that out.
And you become friends with like the tree guys, especially if they've got a chipper. Like we run a big chipper. It's like $1,000 a day to get it in here. It's enormous. I can use an excavator to feed it. I paid 5 guys, 40 hours a week, all 5 of them, and we just fed it out of the burn pile. And when we were done, we had like 2 piles of wood chips. So if you can get a guy to drop that shit, it's way more advantageous. Like we put all of this in 20 inches of wood chips multiple times. Every year we put wood chips over here, hundreds of wheelbarrows or bucket loads out of this, and then we just kind of rake them out, and they'll literally be 20 inches deep. We've had the whole back in it.
It's like digging in Utah.
So like when John got here, it was this clay chert.
When we bought this place, they had excavating equipment on it. It literally was a gravel pit.
And he's built this much soil. Like you won't find that much soil in like a lot of places. Like
24 inches deep up top.
Like that's, and this is what we live on. This is what supports all of our life, is this topsoil right here. And that's why they say by 2060, we won't have any topsoil left.
It's the biggest thing the United States exports is topsoil. It goes out in the waterways into the ocean.
And so that's what you're looking for, is a fungal dominant ground soil. You'll smell it, and it'll smell like a musty forest. If it stinks, that's the bad bacteria that you don't want, and almost don't want to touch it, because it could have pathogens in it that you don't want tilling it up and getting air to it, getting it out of the water.
You guys ever, like when we do the wood chips too, we don't ever water these during the summer. It'll be 105 out here. You step on the wood chips, they sound like potato chips. When you move them back 3, 4, 6 inches below it, it's moist, and you see this spider web running through there. That's mycorrhizal fungi. They've shown mycorrhizal fungi will take water and wick it up to a mile away where it's at. It's a living organism that has a communication to it.
It's like the internet for the woods.
Yep.
And what they say is, like, say like you have an oak or something in the middle of the woods and it gets a disease. Yeah, somehow the science, they put the exudates in the soil and it goes through that fungus and it tells all these trees, hey, put out such and such chemical, so that way you can be resistant. And the next tree might die, but that 3rd, 4th, 5th tree will probably live.
They've proven all that through dyed water. It'll literally wick it for color.
All right.
So when you have the wood chips, do you ever worry about it catching on fire? Like it?
No, like I have caught it on fire because we torch weeds and stuff, but no, I have not.
It's not like hay where
It's like insulation.
It's very cool. Like in the winter, when we come on the property, you will see steam billowing out of the property. That wood pile over there. When it snows, there is no snow on the wood pile. And when it's cold in the morning, it's beautiful because it fogs out the whole property.
I'm sure if you wanted, if you're
I
like,
got like a whole dump truck full of wood chips a couple years ago, and they just dumped it right on my front lawn. And then of course we had like the first
So we have.
foot of snow and couldn't move it.
We did have it catch on fire when we would go to the landfill and they were using green waste and brown waste and stuff. We brought a bunch home and it did catch on fire in San Diego. We've never had it with any of this stuff though.
Yeah. But my pile, like after about a month, steamed, melted all the 1.5 foot of snow on top. Like,
And when you move that wood mulch back there, you'll usually find snake eggs, turtle eggs, all kinds of worms.
oh, it takes a little hole out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Found some roaches or beetles in there.
so I guess, I mean, to be like, if this was me and my property, you can see there's this nice indentation that slopes to here, and we already have soil. I mean, shoot, I would pull out some of these sticks and I'd probably just set it right here because it's already done for us. You can kind of see this lower indentation. It's coming down, it's coming up, it's bowling for us, which will then set the water in and then get it on top. So I think let's go to this next one. We'll dig there.
Do that if you want to do it.
No, I am. I'm just saying that if we're gonna dig a hole, let's dig this hole.
You don't realize you're coming back and fixing all of this.
Yes, sir. I just took your advice the other day. Ordered in I think it's going to be a pallet of cardboard rolled on big rolls, so you can set them in dumpsters, and then you just unroll it.
I will give you as much cardboard as you can.
But see, the problem is then I have to pull the tape. Okay, well there you go. I just find yourself sitting there pulling tape, and you're like, this is a waste. Damn. So right now I'm just looking to see, did this thing strangle itself out? The roots actually look pretty good. It's a fig. But you can see here, this root is coming across. And when we pull that pear, we're gonna pull it out and just rake everything else out.
We never undress that one.
Right, so there you go. So here's a good, this root came out from the base and it grew inside of itself.
Like those trees we put in over there, right?
Well, we fixed those ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
See,
when
like,
we pull them out,
this
that's
thing
where
is-
they were.
Jeez. And
People,
so,
you'll hear all the time, like, you have to untangle the roots. Until you see somebody do it right, like, we're going to rip some roots out. You're going to
Yeah.
break some of them. They're going to come out, and you want them in the direction. You want them to come out like the tree looks up top. That's how you want that to look down below.
all right, where we got that cardboard at? Great, just grab the one above there. It's not all messed up. To the left. There you go, grab that. And so when I do this, something that Billy Bond taught us, get your cardboard, set it on the ground, dig your hole, and put the dirt on the cardboard. So that way you're not losing any. You really aren't losing much. It just looks cleaner and nicer. Yeah, just set that down. And then I'll end up shaking all that soil off of there. So you can see here we're sloping it down into this drainage ditch here. I want it as high as we can get it, and so preferably you'd want to be in line and make it look nice. So instead of going off the trees that are here, I'm going to go off the trees that they already fixed, and so we're actually like up in here. So does anybody want to start digging? So here, pull back a little bit. So we're digging a hole. It's about this big. So start going around that. And like I said, what we're going for is thinner in the edges and deeper in the middle. And then we can always add it in to get that elevation up if we need to. But we're decompacting the soil. You can see this here is gorgeous looking dirt. A lot of it's from the pot itself. But what we're trying to do is break up this clay. The clay has nutrient in it, but it can't really work with its magic if it's all compacted like that. And so it's like taking your finger and trying to put it through gravel. That's what that root's trying to do. And so a lot of people do is like, oh, I got to get all this off. Let's get a sod cutter, grass. We'll turn it right over on itself. And
Pull that up?
Yeah, put that on the. There you go, like that. You don't have to go as deep.
So you're really just taking off the layer that has like grass or weeds and roots.
Right here, yeah. And it's because we want it high. And it's because of the area we live in and the soil type we have, which is clay. And terrible draining. So I'd rather the water hit the top of the roots and get those feeder roots and then wick itself out instead of sitting in a deep hole. So like if we had out the skid steer and we were doing the auger, I'd want 3 auger holes. Like
pile,
a foot deep, maybe less.
This is my job.
So that way we could then dig out that auger hole, because what happens is in the clay soil, it ends up creating a sheen to it, and you end up creating a crepe.
This is my day job, bro.
So
There's no
what he
strain.
said, where you filled it with water, and it was still wet for 2 weeks, find a new place to plant a tree, or plant it on top. This is what we're kind of doing.
How do you propagate like a pear or a plum?
So stone fruits, to my knowledge, you can propagate in like water. I mean, in just dirt. You cut a limb off, stick it in dirt, and it'll start to root. It's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. If I'm going to do that, I want to take a well-known rootstock. So Dave Wilson Nursery. You can stop it. That's deep enough. Dave Wilson Nursery is like the end-all, be-all for backyard orchardists. They have almost all of the cultivars for rootstock. And you just go on there and look for a rootstock for clay soil, peach type, apple type. So when you're at the store or at the nursery and they say, hey, this is a semi-dwarf apple or custard apple in your case, or a peach or whatever, you're going to want to pick one that's good for your soil. Because what they've done is they grew a tree, topped it, and then they grafted in a known. So they took a branch off of a pear. They took a calorie pear, a Bradford pear probably, got that, and then they put a good fruiting pear. So that's probably a Bartlett or a Kiefer or something like that. So grafting's great. It's very cool. I think where it shines is the stuff that you already have. Most places have Bradford pear trees and crab apples because they're hardy and they look nice in your yard. They don't put anything off. So if you could top that crab apple or cut the bottom part out of the pear tree, you can then graft in eating pears in your yard, in which I did that. And you can do any type, multiple types. Like I've got a crab apple that's got 6 different varieties of apples on it. And so and they're all different cedar rust resistant apples. So this is a little deep. I want it to be so you kind of, it's not looking that great, but you're kind of getting that bowl shape that we're looking for. And so this, you can just turn it right over on itself. It'll die and feed the soil. This is all a lot of clover, so it'll be very good for it. We're doing a fig here. So like I said, I tried self-watering buckets. I think it's a waste of time. I ended up just watering them because when they got dry, it wouldn't absorb water fast enough. And then when it was too wet, we get anaerobic soil.
It becomes hydrophobic. If you take this cardboard and you run a hose on it, it won't absorb water. You literally have to dunk it underwater and then it will be able to absorb water. But once it dries out all the way, it'll just be sitting there and it'll whip water away.
So pass that around and smell that.
Are you planting it with the comfrey attached?
Mm-hmm. So what I've been doing, is how I got all the strawberries.
Yep.
I bought a bunch of the carts a while back, like y'all have.
What does it smell like?
And I put the mineral buckets up again.
It smells like life.
Strawberries grew over it and just seeded themselves.
Yep.
And so I had a bunch of extra comfrey, and I didn't have any place for it that I wanted to not get eaten. So I just started sticking it in places that I did propagations.
Awesome.
And now it's intermingled with the roots.
Would you prefer to put comfrey on every one of these trees?
Mm-hmm. But the problem is that the chickens are going to get to it before it even takes hold. Kill all the chickens.
Kill all the golfers.
Kill all the golfers. I think they put me in the house for that. And so this is this little thing I built. And it's just a screen with a zip tie. Stinks. All right. So this is maybe a year, 18 months old. You can see the white roots in it. The brown roots are dead. We're not really going to have to undo this one. This one looks pretty good. We could split it and break it open and have, so that way the roots flared out. But might as well. We'll need some water to water them in, but we can do that at the end. Oh, here we go. That's a good spot. So you can see this kind of turned over.
We don't need it yet, John. We don't need it. Definitely don't need it on.
This killed it. This rooted itself, and you see how it's all brown, not nice and white or yellow. So you kind of break this up. There we go. These medium-sized roots are what we want.
This is my issue with it. You don't have to be gentle.
No,
I'm always
no.
super gentle.
Preferably, it's easier to do, and you'll have less stress on the tree in the winter and the fall.
Right.
But yeah, I come through just like you're combing your hair. Or what hair I have left.
Hair's over
You got to take
Right?
care of it, right?
There's some really good white roots under your hand on the bottom. There you go. Underneath.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Good roots. Gotta love roots. And so right now you can see it starting to separate. I don't want to mess too much with those upper feeder roots. I want them to stay intact because of what time of year we're in. If it was any other time of year, I just kind of just shake it off. I don't want the soil to be, or the roots to be too bad and get too stressed out today. So like that's gonna look good. That's gonna be good. See, it's just kind of falling off. It's not that big a deal. The roots that you're really concerned about are these, oh shit, are these bigger roots. Those are the ones you want to make sure you keep. And so you can see the mulch is kind of falling in our hole. You kind of want to get that out of there, but when you go to the garden store and you buy garden bed mulch, it's full of wood. And I've grown plenty of stuff in it. It just doesn't grow as good, but with what we're dealing with here, which is poor draining soil, it might benefit it.
Now, when you set that down, you swept the roots downhill. Is that intentional?
It's just where it's here. So if I see a root that's over here, I'm going to pull it out.
But you're not worried about it being towards what would be the most likely water source? It'll
No,
do
no.
that itself?
I want it to anchor into the ground. Okay. I want it to tie itself off. And then you're going to want to kind of break this up. And so like this is like really nice stuff compared to what we usually see. And I'll save the green stuff for the top. What I'm doing also is trying to break up these clods. Like we don't need that rock. And the reason I like to do this is because this is what has those nitrogen nodules in it. And so although it's got nitrogen in here, my thought is I want to get all that stuff near the good roots that we can. And we already have this nice little comfrey plant that's going to do well with it. But you can see here that looks like a rock,
straight clay.
But it's clay. And so like this is what John's soil looked like when he got here.
That's what we export from here.
I kind of do half and half. Some people say, hey, you've got to tamp it and pack it down. Just depends on where you're at and what the soil conditions are. I don't like there to be a lot of air bubbles. Guess I should have you guys break this up a little more.
Break it up for them.
Yeah, just stab it up, break it up, get it loose.
Here, leave first. Let's go. Yeah. I remember King of the Hill when Bobby took self-defense.
Yep.
I got my purse.
I don't know you, that's my purse. All right, so well, here, if your cardboard isn't too wet, which this might be. You can just take it.
Flip it.
Yeah, it's very fast. But you can flip it over and just throw it into the soil, into the hole. And so what I like to do on a lot of downhill slopes is kind of almost mimic a swale. And so I kind of downhill feed this back bit of dirt, so that way it kind of creates a little berm. And then when the water runs down the hill, it'll fill here and then overflow the sides. Just a technique that you can use when you're out guerrilla gardening, planting your other trees.
Rake.
Yeah, if you got that yard rake. Man. All right, and then I usually kind of give it a little tap. You don't want to stomp it because we just decompacted that soil. Well, you don't want this to go anywhere. Get out of here, weed. All right. Can we get maybe a bucket of rabbit poop? Cut a Y in it.
Somebody grab that bucket.
And then you slide it around over the tree. We've kind of over soaked these, and they kind of fell apart. So I'm just going to kind of use it. But you would take your knife, cut it, and then just draw it down the middle here. So that didn't really work. And just slide it over it, so that way it doesn't shift and fall off. Because all this stuff could get flooded and then just wash off, but we're going to cover it with a good chunk of mulch. Yes, ma'am. Box fort. Living room box fort. Here it comes. Right on time. Early box. Early.
All right, we've got a lot of it.
Yeah, we don't need it.
It's actually getting
Psoriasis.
the
All right, dump it. Dump it high and we'll drag it around. Back up, back up. Dump it now. There you go. Enough. Keep going. Remember I said at least 12 inches. All right.
Somebody grab that
Should be
rake
good.
behind him.
Yeah, there you go. Y'all do it.
You don't want to cover the concrete, do you?
We'll get it.
Oh, yeah.
Jump
Keep it off the trunk.
It'll like if you took and just cut it, in like 2 days it'd be that big.
Oh, okay.
The sheep.
Are we still worried about maintaining that
down every morning?
higher slope on the downhill side?
Just cover it.
Okay.
And now it's like
Just
this
cover
big
it.
back there.
And so every time you go to a shopping mall or anywhere that's getting commercially landscaped, you see this volcano effect with the mulch. So they want it to brush right up and it looks nice. What you really want is to have this open. They call it a donut on its side, which I don't know many donuts that sit straight up and down. Give us a little more mulch if you don't mind. Jumper. Let's do the whole thing.
Got this?
Yeah, that's good enough. Just spread that out.
I'll order in a couple hundred yards of concrete. You guys can do wheelbarrow races.
Go on the gravel, right?
So when I do it, I kind of just like put a fist, or you can do this.
Boots
and
and
just
belts?
keep yourself a
At least boots and belts.
good around it. At the most of boots and
Bill
belts.
Walking's the way to go, dude. Shoes, underwear, and suspenders.
Shoes, underwear, and suspenders.
So hold the undies up. You can hold them up.
Why they have suspenders? Nobody will care that they're almost
To cover your nipples.
And now that we've made this nice little mulch ring, you can see where we can now have places to plant.
Yeah.
And what I like to do is, this is what you're going to get from most stores. It's going to be small, and it's not shading anything out. Plant your annuals in with your perennials. So like right now, we could put 4 tomato plants here. That would cause shade. You put roots into the soil for organic matter, and you'd also get something from it. Gives you 2 reasons to come water and check on your tree. Allow pests to go to the plant that you don't want, which you want this all the time. And for the first 3 years, it's pivotal that you water.
Grab the hose.
No. We'll finish up.
Do all of them at once.
Yeah.
All right.
So if somebody wants to dig, group of 3 guys dig that tree up.
First pull that tree and see if it's full of fire ants.
Oh yeah. That's
Pull that tree out.
It should just come right out.
Your first few blades in here act as though there's ants in there, just in case.
Means dig carefully.
Go and
Don't let the ants crawl up.
Dig
your
in there.
fucking shed
Don't get the
like your
soil
little
on you in
dick.
case there's ants.
You want
in
to
there.
get a cardboard?
Here, let me have it.
Never give up your weapon, dude.
Yes, we should have cardboard.
Yeah.
You guys are good.
Guzzling water.
All right, we had fire ants all over. You can see them down there. And I took some orange oil and mixed it in with a 1 gallon warm water. And I put, about a couple inches out of the bottle. Poured them on here, and it killed those out. The next day, the ground was almost like clay. Broke out, you could see all the hive and everything. There was still a few ants in there. But when I checked this about a week ago, there was still ants. There does not seem to be any ants in here now, so that worked.
That orange shit you guys tried to make me drink?
I was never gonna make you drink. I think it would burn you really
Is there any
bad.
more cardboard in the back? 1,200, 1,500 foot elevation mountain. We backpacked 20 native blueberries in this backpack and planted them and planted them up on top.
That's awesome.
All the tribes used to migrate from season to season. And when you look at it from air, and when they were looking at satellite location, and those were planted due to migration, and they were able to eat on their way.
Well, that's what they say, like pawpaws. It's our only real tropical fruit that we have. And it says, it has to be in shade and only creek canals. Well, you can see here it's April and I'm sweating out in the middle there along the creek bank.
Because I've seen them growing.
Orient pear. So I'll keep this. So this is a great pear. This is a Japanese pear, and so it's cedar. It's fire blight resistant in comparison to your Bartlett or your Kiefer, which the Bartlett are what you see in the grocery store.
Rural King has dozens of varieties of apples, pears, peaches.
And so I just took this off of here. It was very tight. And
I have aluminum tags also. At some point will come through, because these will stay for 3 months, 6 months. Also, most of these trees, especially from the box stores, when that tree dies, you have a year warranty on that thing. You can pull it out and take it back to Lowe's, Home Depot. So try to keep a diary or something of which tree. I don't think the minimum wage dude at the counter will know the difference.
The fruiting spur grew through the hole.
Does that mean you're gonna take the tree that you just
It
pulled?
means in theory I should, but I never return anything. I should
You got a
probably
knife?
have a guy on staff that returns all of
You got a
my
pocket
shit.
knife on you?
Yeah.
Just cut this.
I have every intention of it, and then finally there's so much of it, I'm like, fuck it, this looks terrible, throw this in the dump.
And so if you leave like that on, that would have killed that branch in a little bit.
Wow.
You leave this on, it'll girdle the tree, and you'll end up losing that half. And it looks nice now, but if you're gonna leave them on because you got plans to do what John and I do, put it on the thinnest tree at the tallest pot, because that's the least growth you're gonna see immediately. So when a year or two goes by and you haven't gotten to it yet, you still have a little
I
bit.
saw some of you guys had really good penmanship. If you write tags, people will pay you to write tags for them. I can't read my writing at all. Yeah, people will, like Etsy, just fucking handwritten tags and notes and all kinds of shit. There's always a dude in every county jail that's writing cards home.
Yep. That's what I taught myself this shit, and then I can't stop writing it. I don't know how to write regular now.
You should make quills too.
I'd be more into 3D printing tags.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, that
My handwriting
Drac
sucks.
was talking to me and Easy Peasy Gardener about it. It was like, man, that's what I would do if I was you. He goes, you could sell, make your own for your own landscape company, and then sell to everybody. I'm going to prune it before we do it because I'm going to I don't want whatever's could be in that pot into the tree because we're going to create a wound. You can see here, we've got a lot of stuff going straight up. Stefan Kobiak and Billy and them, they talk about you either want to grow a tree which grows straight up or you want to grow a fruit tree. Because once the fruit gets on here, it bends the branches and it sends sugars into the fruits and it tells it to fruit more.
So when you prune these things, if you're comfortable with how much you've pruned it, you've not pruned it enough. They say you should be able to take a cat by the tail and throw it, and when it panics, it can't grab any of the limbs. That's how sparse the tree should be. Also on fruit trees, certain types of fruit trees only grow fruit on new growth. So when I come through here and I'm like, oh, I don't want all this new shit all over the place, I might not get any fruit off of that tree this year if I cut off all the new fruit.
Is there a specific time of year it's best to prune?
Yeah, in the winter or
Okay.
in the fall.
Fall in the winter.
Never when I do it.
You can do it. So Diane Lang has a book out. She's a little old granny. She wrote a book called Grow a Little Fruit Tree. And she has like, from here to John's Fence, she has like 70 fruits. And it's because she grows them in small groups because A, she can't reach, just like most of us. And what you're gonna happen is you're gonna have a 40-foot fruit tree and you're gonna climb it and you're gonna be 70 years old getting that pear and you're gonna fall. And only the fruit on the outside is what comes because you need the sun to hit the sugars. So it might fruit in the middle, but it won't be sweet and it'll probably wither up and die. And so you really want to be sparse with, or heavy with your pruning. If you took and you put a plant from seed, Masanobu Fukuoka, One Straw Revolution, his thing is do nothing gardening. It's like the seed that planted that pine tree didn't have any help, it just did it. They didn't come and prune it to make that shape. The tree knew what to do. But what we're doing here, as you can see, we're taking probably a Calorie pear or a Bradford pear, and they grafted on the scion, which is the stuff that we want, onto here, and that's where they topped and headed this before. You can see that.
So that whole thing is a graft, all the
This,
growing.
yeah, they grafted it here, and it's healed over. That's where they topped it, where they did this.
What's the difference between a grafting and a seed splicing?
You got me. I've never seed spliced anything. I've done slip grafting and tongue and groove grafting, tongue and groove, that's flooring. I think it's valuable, especially if you've got a pear that you like and you've already got a Bradford, shitty, non-sterile, which are outlawed in North Carolina now because they wind blow and they're everywhere. You can see them in the spring. They're the stuff that make you sneeze. Because it's just
What was that again?
Bradford pears.
Bradford pears?
And they do not produce pears.
They don't
and
produce
they're
pears.
popular for landscaping.
Yeah, because they're hardy, and that's why they use them for rootstocks. This might not be a Bradford pear
And
rootstock,
every time we have a straight line wind, we'll split in half.
right? Because they're not meant for that. And so there's multiple ways to skin a cat. There's multiple ways to prune a tree. I go by kind of how John said. You really want the air to get through it, so any bacteria or blight or anything comes through, it doesn't get dense in here and grab onto the leaves. It actually has air circulating through it. Like what you smelled in that bucket, that's what grows bacteria and the stuff you don't want. You don't want that. You want air to get through everything. Air helps and solves almost all the problems. That's why the government told you to stay inside for 2 years so you die.
Sun is antibacterial.
That's true. And so like the stone fruits over here, your peaches, your plums, your apricots, you want an open center. You want it to be open so that way it gets as much sunlight on the top because of how they fruit. It's more beneficial to have an open center. Pears and apples, you're supposed to want a central leader. I kind of just go with what I want in the time and what the tree likes to do. Like Shinko pears, they're kind of like wavy how they grow. They don't grow nice and straight. They kind of grow all wonky and they look cool. So I kind of just let it go into like a bushish up thing. And then I also just see how the tree's growing. Like we didn't get a choice with this. We didn't go to the store and pick through a dozen of them. Most of the time you don't. and it's kind of all off-centered. So if we pick the central leader, we'd want to take rid of all of these and just pick one. I think it's probably more beneficial to leave a couple and have them either choose themselves to get which one is going to get bigger, or we can take and you can espalier the tree and make it fruit faster. So you take and you paracord this down, you keep it like this, and this will tell the branch to put on fruit. So next year it'll put out fruit.
That's awesome.
You talking about the arm flexor things?
Arm flexor things, or you can just use paracord and just line wire, guide wire it down. And you can see here, the top here got something in it, or it died, or whatever. And so what's going to happen is this is going to now put out. It's already doing it here, 3, 4, and then you're just going to have another set of growth.
You make these little things like your finger when you break it. You put it on there and it bends. It's like a little spring-loaded thing.
You just leave them on there for, like, depending on what time of season, 6 months to a year, and you take it off and the tree will stay how it is.
Come over here and shit on this for you.
Yeah, go for it, man. We appreciate it.
Hi.
I don't know what you want to do, tree. So in like this case, it's kind of a tree that's not making sense to me. I just start cutting things off that I know I don't want, and then the shape kind of reveals itself. You can do Stefan Sokoviak's method, LBL, but everything like the NAP, he now teaches he doesn't like NAP. He calls them trios of trees. So he does like a red bud and 2 blueberry bushes. It doesn't have to be nitrogen apple pear, but it's catchy and it works. LBL works.
Stands for what?
Low branches in the barrel of the tree and then in the lane. So if you're walking through here, this isn't a footpath, so the lane really doesn't have any guidance. But if you have a vast geography that you're working with, he wants you to actually keep low branches, so that way the rabbits have something to come eat in the winter. And so if you kept these low, they'll come eat this, and they won't get up here and girdle your tree. But I don't like the looks of it. You know, it looks like a shady ass tree.
These are set up so that I can mow around them, which I haven't done in
Thankfully.
Well, it's because of the goats, right? Or the lambs or whatever.
Well, I want it so it's clean.
He wants it to look like a park.
I think that looks the best.
No, it is.
We're just gonna hit. And you're also looking for crossing stuff. So you can see here, this branch is growing into this branch. So you either say, do I want this one? It's already trying to put out new branches, or do I want to keep this one? I want to get rid of that one. This one's going out good. That one's got its own place. So I also think about the levels of how the branches are going to go. They're going to go down, and then it's going to grow up, and it's going to go down again. This one here is growing in the middle. Get rid of that. I want them to go outward, and so that way we keep a nice open path so we can throw that cat, one of these dead cats that John's got, right through the middle of it.
And how often do you have to prune it?
I do it every fall. Back to that grow a little fruit tree, she prunes twice a year. To keep them, it stunts them.
Is that for the...
You can top a tree. Like I put a bunch in and the power company wanted to cut them. You can cut them. Like the pear trees we have that grow super tall, I'll cut half that thing off every year.
You could literally, we could have taken and just cut here, and stuff will come out. And it'll start it over. And usually when you're doing this and it's not this big, that's what you want to do. You want to just stop it and just let it start doing its own thing.
But I mean, you do that for the first 3 years or every year?
Every year.
Every year?
Every year you're going to want to prune.
The watering is the first 3 years, right?
Watering's first 3 years. Every year you want to prune. I'm not happy with it, but it looks okay. So we also don't know what's going to be a fruiting spur yet and what's going to be a branch. And the fruiting spur is what puts on your blossoms, so that way you don't want to cut those off because then next year you're going to have fruit on them. So this is what you're going to get at the store. So you can see that. Just circling around. Looks rough. Seen worse. So I just kind of start with the bottom here.
I use a crusher nozzle.
Yeah,
When I
yeah.
can, and I'll literally rip those down like
Yeah.
almost to fruit.
Yeah, and you can do that. You can do that with your dirt too. Trying to dig a post hole, get a pressure washer. And you're just out here just beating it. And you're just, man, get a pressure washer and just start drilling that hole in there. And it'll work a lot better than sweating. And so you can see here, this is what I talk about when if you take a class or you read something on YouTube, everyone says 2 inches above the graft union, and that's about 2 inches above the graft union, but that's not the root flare. If we're supposed to observe what's going on over on these trees, we want it to the root flare. So we're going to come through and keep working our way down all the way to here. So we're going to take all that off. Hey, bud, or sweetheart. This is Bob's dog? Different one?
We had that dog before we had this property.
Okay.
We bought an instant farm. We went to
Oh,
get
all
a
right.
couple of chickens and we came back with like 40 animals.
If you leave this how it was and you set it there, like I said, it'll kill it. The tree doesn't know that it's not in a pot, and so it's almost like training an elephant with a lead collar when it's young. It just won't know what to do, and it'll just keep going and keep going. And so sometimes to save time, you just cut them. You literally can just take your shovel and just hit it, and I just go 3 or 4 times around, and it'll just break these roots that are growing in. And then the roots will just start to grow out from there, just like we prune these trees. Preferably we get, you can see here, this one here is growing this way. We want it to go that way. Oh man.
Once you get exposed to that, there'll be some big roots in there that are really circling around inside.
No, you did. Yeah. Oh yeah, here we go.
It'll come down and like literally travel back up. These Coronas he has, there's 3 versions of these right here. That's the one with that. Okay, so that's got the old coil
This is
spring
Felco 2.
That's the coil spring. We got one that's got a rotary tensioner in here, and then there's a third one also.
These are probably the best that are out there, as far as you can get. You can get some German ones that are nice. There's some Japanese ones, but you can get these on Amazon for $60. The blades are replaceable, and they engineered it so that way this little metal piece here takes a file, and it's the right angle of cutting, and it keeps, yeah, smart idea. Felco Swiss. So I'm just gonna So if this is a little tougher, you can take and just keep soaking it in a 5-gallon bucket and just keep plunging it, and like John said, with a hose. And a lot of these are just capillary roots, feeder roots, and they'll grow back faster than these bigger ones do. So I'm kind of looking for a few of those that we can keep, and the rest we're probably gonna have to cut. Hence why we tried to prune this, because this needs to feed this, and if you have not enough here and too much up there, it'll just self-select the branches it doesn't want. Yeah, we're gonna have to just break that off. So you guys gonna come back to Self-Reliance Festival in October?
Yeah, absolutely.
They do classes just like this. Full day classes.
It's chilly, I think. I don't know. I've never been here, but
October, it's usually hot. So here's one of those ones that came out, you can't really see it here, came out, hit the side wall of the pot, and then grew into itself. So these are those roots that John's talking about in the bottom here.
Do these have tap roots? So that
that's
taproot
what that
that's
is right
supposed to
there.
be down in the earth is growing back up.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to hold that thing into the ground, really.
So we'll come through, usually like a saw or something.
So that won't grow any further. And
It will. It's going to grow inside of itself. You can see these roots are going this way. This one's going up into it. We could
But I meant it won't grow down any further without you trimming it off. And
probably not. It'll probably just keep killing itself because here's where it's going right here. It turned right, turn left. So I'm just going to. Because they're just right angles.
Next time it's windy.
Yeah, yeah. Next time it's windy.
This was in a burlap last year. Somebody had already cut it when they went into another pot, and they cut all that shit off of there.
What they usually do is they take, if you go to the store and it's in a sack, a burlap sack in a pot, they bought bare root and they put it in some whatever this is material, and then they just turn on the sock. If you read the sock, it says, "Please don't take me out of the sock," because if you do, there's no roots on it. When in reality, it'd be a great little bare root tree, but it's already started growing.
So of course we took it out of the sock.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is just trying to untangle them, get them so that way they'll go somewhat of an outward direction. Work my way down. That still got water in it. Soak it. And while we're here, we'll start working on that one for a minute.
This can't be nearly as bad.
No. But it's still pretty, you can see those capillary roots that are all there. And you can see it was probably not watered too much, it was stressed out, and so from the graft, it's starting to come out, so we don't know what kind of stone fruit this would be. Nip it at the bud, as so they say.
They're behind you if you're looking for your cutter.
No, I was just going to put this down here, I guess. Trying to figure out where a good spot would be to put it. All right, got some shovels. There you go, they can see that a lot better now. So I left, these ones were going at a right angle towards itself. This one hopefully will go that way. These ones will hopefully go down. These, oh, steady. And then we could hold these out and put dirt on them and force them that way, kind of training the roots to go where they want them. There's two schools of thought with the graft. You want to put the graft to the north because it's an open wound, and usually they're young. And so if you put it on there, it'll get sunburned. You want to put it north. Also, I always put it to the prevailing wind, because this is growing at an angle this way. So if it's pushing, the wind is usually coming from this way, in this bowl, it'll push back against itself. And so now we're at level grade. We can see we dug way too deep because we want it to be down here at this root flare. So we want this plant to be like this. All right, slow down, Hercules. Sorry, buddy. So see here we're the grade we're at, and we'll hold this down. Oh, sorry, I was like, what's falling? Give me a couple shovelfuls. I guess they're clotted, huh? All right, slow down.
Huh? Is this one out of the pot?
Yeah.
It sounds like a radiator. Not mine.
They
Not
grow
in
around
here.
in circles. This one had grown out, down, back up, started chasing up, so it never would have rooted down.
Just keep
That's the
going
case
slow.
with most of them. You get 2 or 3 years, you'll even get fruit off them, and all of a sudden they'll just die.
It's a conspiracy.
They have a lifetime warranty, but like everything, people don't ever use that. Well, a 1-year warranty.
I'm gonna keep it up.
Stack them up for years. Bring them all at once.
Start moving the rest of the dirt on.
Oh yeah, sure.
Most people, customers here.
Yeah, in a minute. Let's get this topsoil back on there.
Customer service. Even with leaves on, they're not going to know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that work in lawn and garden,
Hopefully.
Maybe.
yeah.
I worked at Home Depot for like a year, and they're pretty close there. Generally. That's not every Home Depot. They're not nursing. Yeah. They are well. Generally, they're either jaded middle-aged freaking people or college kids that are getting through until the next semester.
Grub worm. Sorry.
Good.
Guess that might have been good content.
I expect to see that in slow motion, Brandel.
Gotcha.
Have you guys found these cicadas? Usually when they're coming the year they're coming, we would have like seen them today.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the mega hatch. It's the convergence of a 70-year plague or something.
Terrifying if it happens.
Should be like the eclipse. Yeah.
Yeah. Big old nothing burger.
Yeah. They say that like every several years. They're like, oh my god.
When we first moved here, we've seen them twice, where the sidewalks were covered with them.
Yeah.
I've
But
never
not
seen
here.
them here.
No, they're just on the trees everywhere. They just make loud noise.
Don't they plant in the trees?
They make a lot of hellacious noise.
Yeah.
You want something
You wanna
to fill the
give me an eye here?
size
How straight are we?
the next generation.
Looks like we're leaning a little this way.
They live way out in the desert and they'll finish the driveway.
Compared to
What are they?
Come in.
Mormon crickets?
Yeah. Like we'd be camping out in the desert and you just go down the road and you're just hearing crunch, crunch, crunch. Like it's like you're driving on gravel even if you're on asphalt because of all the crickets.
So maybe we should prep the site a little more. But all this will start to rot down and it'll feed the soil. I like putting this stuff back in just because it was already in itself. So it's going to know that soil. And if there's any, sometimes they put fertilizer balls in there. We got our poop.
Who's got the poop?
Right here, over here.
There's one here.
Okay.
Damn.
Dump it on.
Yeah, just throw her in there. If it was me and John was like, hey Tim, find me a supplier for red buds, I'd be like, and we want to do this strip, I'd say we need like 30 red buds, and we're just gonna, every other tree we're gonna put a red bud in there. Because then in the spring it'll look beautiful because there'll be this pink, you know, I don't know if you've seen red buds in Florida, but they're a beautiful spring tree. And instead of all the ones that everybody else in permaculture recommends, which are black locusts and all these thorny nastiness that don't do anything other than good firewood, I'd rather it look nice and then it does what it needs to do.
But if you need a barrier crop, you need to put up a perimeter, you need fast firewood, that'll do that.
Yeah.
Fun thing about black
People aren't
locust,
coming through there.
it's ultraviolet sensitive. Sap will glow in black lights.
And so, personally, when you're planting, you don't want to plant when it rains because we have clay. And so we've just kind of created this little clay mound here. And so hopefully, with the poop and the mulch and the cardboard, it won't harden off and create a little clay pot for this apricot.
Want to break that down and put a bag of topsoil with it?
If you have a topsoil?
Yeah, I bagged it.
Yeah, if you
I
could.
bought a whole pallet of it.
Perfect.
Where are they at?
I see them in the back.
Yeah, get a bag or two.
Yeah, red. Just one.
You're gonna come out and you're gonna be kneeling down and doing some weeding, and you're like, what is that? And you're just gonna pull it up so it doesn't break down. It'll just sit there. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's just gonna sit there and it won't decompose the way we want it to.
Shipping labels.
Yeah. And so what I usually do if I've got these and I want to actually use them, which I've gotten to the point where I don't, I just leave them outside and bake in the sun, and then then this stuff kind of just peels right off. Look at this. This has a wired chip in it.
They're coming.
See that?
Bugged. You're listening to us.
Scannable sticker chip.
Probably from Walmart.
Bastards.
Just dump it in, mix it in.
Oh yeah, just dump it right on top.
Hey, when someone's trying to work my area.
Put it in that hole. There you go.
Same thing with Kevin said.
There you go. Just leave it right there. Perfect.
It was creepy. I bought something there the other day, and then they sent me an email like, "Hey, here's the stuff you bought." And I was like,
Stick it on.
"Oh, my hand."
Yeah, some other agents.
Some of you guys have chips in
I definitely do.
I probably do.
I used to.
I'm actually afraid that I don't.
I pay my taxes. I definitely have a chip.
And I've got anthrax.
So like,
7 or 8
see that
times.
right there?
it. They told you it was anthrax.
So you're gonna plant it. And you're gonna want it to go out. So I create a little channel. Put it in there. I cover it back up. You're gonna want to do that. Man. Golly. Clay City. Poop.
Yeah. Reese's Puffs too. Depends on the mood they're in.
Cocoa Pebbles. This is what I was talking about before. So now when the water comes off this hill and it picks this up, it's just going to butt up against this, and it leaves us a little air hole.
How much cardboard is too much cardboard?
I haven't found enough.
All right, that makes that easy.
Once the soil gets alive, 2 months, all this cardboard will be eaten. You'll come back, rake back this mulch, and you'll just see white strands of spaghetti.
It's good. I get a lot of Amazon boxes.
That's what I said too. Yeah.
You don't soak that cardboard though when you coat it, water will never penetrate through it.
Like when
Just sit dead underneath it.
it's like a wall. It'll just bead right off, go underneath it.
Has a cover.
There you go. Science.
Big science.
So they say that these Walmart ones are good to do it with. I don't know. If it's wrapped in something that's not just brown cardboard, I usually don't do it. The ones that are Amazon, they just have the ink on them. You can see that comes off in its own sheet. So it's all personal preference and testing. If you want to take your tree and put it in your own test, be my guest. Yeah, this is good. Boom. Is this the Walmart? Gildan? T-shirts. Do they still have a Gildan factory in here?
We have us in front of it.
All right, mulch this up. Back up a little. Yep. I was kind of already moving.
So right there. A little farther forward.
Tip it, dump it down and push. Grab your handle. There you go.
There we go. We want that little bit of
Now you're too deep now. Where he's got that hole's perfect. I usually do my fist, or you can do your.
No, I meant kind of that secondary retention.
Don't worry about that.
Don't worry about
mulch,
that.
The soil below is what'll hold that. The mulch won't do that.
Got it, got it.
Comfrey, I don't know what scent it puts out, but it seems like woodchuck, everything eats it. It's, you know, it's like that, like they talk about natural minerals. Like
Comfrey does?
Yeah, they just know that that's the good stuff.
Well,
And
nothing's in here.
nothing. I would do. Strawberries. I don't think anything will touch.
Yeah,
fruit,
the dogs will eat every bit, anything
think?
through here. Oh yeah. Yeah, they eat mice, they eat everything.
They'll root up the rabbit.
The only place out here there's mice are in the chicken pens and in the rabbits where the dogs can't get.
Gotcha.
They kill cats, come over the fence. The cats come over here and hunt frogs. The dogs kill them.
Good thing and a bad thing, right?
Skylo, same thing. The dogs, they eat Skylo.
Only one can eat. I don't even know about that. One of these on that fence, I got it.
I think we should put you and Lewis out here.
Moon Park does have a name.
If you start running and let the
See
dog
who's
out.
faster.
I'm pushing his ass down now. I ain't gotta be fast, I just gotta be first.
I think Lewis is faster.
I don't know.
You're wiry.
Gotta go away.
I'm faster than you with a hole in your leg, that's for sure.
I built this thing from the bottom, they tore it down, I rebuilt it. I give myself a task, you can bet your ass